He assured Miss Thompson that she was still the best and favorite teacher he ever had in his whole life. Then 4 more years passed, and yet another letter came. This time he explained that he went a little further than his bachelor's degree. He explained that she was still the best, he went a little further and got his bachelor's degree. He decided to go a little further. The letter explained that she was still the best and favorite teacher he ever had, but now his name was a little bit longer. The letter was signed Theodore F. Stoddard, M.D. The story doesn't end there, you see. There was yet another letter that spring. Teddy said he met this girl and he was going to be married. He explained that his father had died a couple years ago, and he was wondering if Miss Thompson might be able to sit in the place at the wedding that was usually reserved for the mother of the groom. Of course Miss Thompson did. And guess what? She wore that bracelet, the one with several rhinestones missing. And she made sure she was wearing the perfume that Teddy remembered his mother wearing on their last Christmas together. They hugged each other, and Dr. Stoddard whispered in Miss Thompson's ear, "Thank you, Miss Thompson, for believing in me. Thank you so much for making me feel important and showing me that I could make a difference." Miss Thompson, with tears in her eyes, whispered back. She said, "Teddy, you have it all wrong. You were the one that taught me that I could make a difference. I didn't know how to teach until I met you." So we got some Teddys in our classrooms, right? We have some Teddys that we heard from earlier today. Reggie Washington talking about his own life experiences. I love this story because it gives me hope. And it resonates with me because, like Reggie, I had some challenging experiences as a child. My parents divorcing at a young age. My mom died from heroin when I was 11 years old. My dad, when he was younger, he was a prisoner in state prisons for dealing drugs. And he taught me a lot of bad ways to interact with other students. He taught me anger equals violence, right? Like Reggie was talking about. When you're angry, the only response you have is violence. And for a lot of us, we see students like that, and it's scary because we don't know what to do. But I read this, and I see Reggie, and I see those kids, and I even see the example in my own life and other children at school or other adults, and it gives me hope that their lives don't have to end the way that they started. But it starts most often with a great teacher, a teacher that believes in that child. And that's why we go in that profession, right? We went into teaching because we want to be millionaires. That's why we went into teaching, right? Come on. We know where the big bucks are at. Other people don't realize it yet, but that's why we went into teaching. No, we went into teaching because we want to change children's lives. We want to make a difference in the world. We want to do something that no other profession can even get close to doing. What does an engineer, a lawyer, a doctor got on this profession? How can they take a life that is destined for prison or to end early or for drugs and alcohol or crime or prostitution? How can they take a life and transform that life and give that person hope and change just not their future, but the future of their children and their children's children? Can those other professions do that? They can't even get close. Only our profession can do that. And that's why we go into this profession. Sorry, I started getting a little bit preachy over here. All right. So I gave you a worksheet because I want to give you guys an opportunity to interact with what I'm doing here. I don't want to do a one-way presentation. So this is number 1 on your worksheet. And what I'm going to do is I will give you opportunities to share with other people. I'm going to, as I start to see people getting a little bit tired and their heads start going up and down a little bit, I'll start having people move around and talk to other people as well. But I want us to think about if you just think of Teddy and you think of all of these things, the complexity of life that brings things into the classroom makes it hard for kids to learn. There's so many things that happen outside of the school environment that create discipline problems inside the classroom. And so I want you to take a minute and a half on your own on number 1 and brainstorm some, I don't know why one of those went up there. There's a freebie right there. Some out-of-school causes for student discipline. Just list them, bullet points, and then we're going to discuss some of those together. So take a minute and a half, number 1. Or draw a comparison, but maybe you said, you know what, at our table we really came to an agreement that this is really a defining characteristic of a punishment, or here's a good example of something that is a punishment. Anybody think of something where you could say, this is really what makes it a punishment? Colin.
I think a punishment is always negative, whereas a consequence could either be positive or negative. A consequence is kind of like the result of a choice, and you can choose either positive consequence or negative. But punishment is always going to be associated with a negative outcome.
Good. So punishment is always negative. A consequence could be negative or positive. Every action creates a consequence, right? So, and one way to think of consequences, and we'll talk about this later at the end if I have enough time. That's why I'm talking really fast. Even though I naturally talk really fast, I'm talking extra fast because I want to fill up all this stuff and not keep you guys late or anything like that. But we'll talk about types of consequences. But consequences happen. They just happen. This is natural. I mean, this is just a byproduct of the actions. Punishment is negative. Okay, anything else? Yes?
Punishment seems to be less reflective. Consequences tend to be a little more reflective.
Good. Punishments tend to be less reflective. Consequences tend to be more reflective. One more. Yes?
You're educating the students in what they did wrong with a consequence, whereas a punishment is just, this is what's going to happen to them. But the consequence, you're explaining to them what they did wrong, and this is what's happening because of that.
Okay, good. So punishment's pretty cut and dry, right? 3 strikes and you're out. It's punishment. With no explanation for that. Yes? All right.
Punishment is like you're not caring about the student. Consequences, you're taking the time to explain and you actually care about them.
That's right. So you really care about the kid with the consequence. So could the same act be a punishment or a consequence depending on how it's delivered? Okay. Most of the time, the reality is that what we do with kids who misbehave is that we punish them. That's the reality. And when I talk about punishments really, I'll give you some defining characteristics of what makes something a punishment. They deter misbehavior on 2 levels. So they're going to try to deter misbehavior 2 ways: irritation and fear. Irritation and fear. It's irritating to sit in after-school detention. It's irritating to wear a dunce cap. Right, that's what they used to. It's irritating to go in timeout. It's irritating to have to write 1,000 times, I will not, blah, 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 whatever. Fear. I'm scared that if you call my dad, what he's going to do. I'm scared that if I get suspended or expelled, how that might affect me in the future, whatever. So fear and irritation. That's how they deter misbehavior. And most of the time, what we do in schools in this nation is punish students. Here's kind of a table that helps us kind of differentiate the two. I don't want to get too much into detail on these, but this is a big part. We want kids to be able to be responsible, accountable, be able to think for themselves and know how to make good decisions. But when we punish kids, that locus of control is purely external. As long as Mr. Washington's not around, I can fight if nobody catches me, right? What's wrong with fighting? I had a kid in my office a month ago. I said, he was getting in a little scuffle with a kid. I said, well, what would happen if you pushed him and then he pushed you back a little bit harder? He's like, well, maybe I would have punched him. What do you call that? A fight. Why is that wrong? Because I could get suspended. Is there any other reason why it's wrong? He couldn't give me a reason. So we want kids to be able to internalize that and know how to be problem solvers. So we punish. That's the reality. In-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, after-school detention, lunch detention, expulsion, kick you out, change you in put you in a different program. That's what we do in schools in this nation. That's what we've done for so long. So they've done some research on this. This is the most comprehensive research ever conducted on this subject. It was called Breaking School Rules, looking at the long-term effects of all those things I said: lunch detention, outs, all the office referrals, suspension, expulsion. What does that do to kids? They tracked 1 million students for over 6 years. Over 6 years, starting in 7th grade. Let's see what happens to the kids. Here's some findings. It's true, right? Based on the label that's put on you, based on the way that you look, you're more likely to be removed from the classroom for the same offense. This is for the same offense. So, for the same offense. You're talking and someone else is talking. Different consequence depending upon what you look like on the outside or the label that has been given to you. Like with boys, for example. More likely to drop out or be held back if you're suspended or expelled. A lot of other findings they had. This one was powerful. And I first showed this to the teachers at my school, and it created a near riot. It was really hard to digest. And it's almost hard for me to digest. It's counterintuitive. Removing students from the classroom for any disciplinary reason has no educational benefit for the student being removed or the rest of the classroom. No, that doesn't make sense. That's a lie. Decades of research has disproven that. So, I'm teaching, and what's the name?
Chris, sorry.
Chris is all right. Chris is disrupting the class, right? And he just keeps being a distraction. If I remove Chris, everybody else can learn, right? That makes sense. But this is saying that if you remove Chris, that has no benefit for Chris and the rest of the classroom. How is that possible? I don't know. Just kidding. It has to do with the way that we look at misbehavior. We're always treating symptoms, right? We always treat symptoms. He's misbehaving, he's misbehaving, he's misbehaving. Why is he misbehaving? Well, we never asked that question. So that's fine. He's doing that, I kick him out. He doesn't know why he got kicked out, because he never was taught those social skills that we take for granted. So when he comes back next time, not only is he being disruptive, but now he's making fun of me, and when my back is turned, he's drawing pictures of me and showing it to the class and flipping me off and making, doing all this crazy stuff. And so did that solve the problem? Did that help him? Did it help the rest of the class? Because he's going to come back to that classroom sooner or later, and it's going to create more problems with that relationship with the teacher. So here's part of the reason why punishments are so ineffective, because they rely upon fear. And when you rely upon fear to motivate, it only works for a little while, right? It only lasts for so long. And after you don't have fear anymore, what do you got? You got to up it. Make the punishment more serious. Make it more threatening, more scary. But what fear does to the brain is a great natural response. It's wonderful. Like when I was younger and I was in high school, my friend and I were riding these mountain bikes through this like little field, and there was like wild dogs or coyotes. I don't know what they were. They were like chasing us, and I got super scared. And like I got Superman powers, and I grabbed my bike and I threw it over this fence and went flying over, and I was like, whoa, how did that happen? Because of fear. Fight or flight mode. Put all the cortisol in the brain. I'm not thinking, boom, I'm just reacting. So that's what punishments rely upon. And unfortunately, when the fear runs out and you don't have the fear anymore, they're not effective. And also, when you're relying upon fear, you're going to get some crazy responses from the students. And you're damaging that relationship like we were talking about earlier. So long-term results of punishment, rebellion or compliance, one of the two. Not real cooperation or not real shared understanding between adult and student. Where do we ever get that crazy idea? Make people do better, we got to make them feel worse first. Is that what we are? We're the Department of Corrections? I had this awesome video, and it was on my flash drive, so it won't play here. There's no way, because it would. I wonder if it would play. No, it didn't. Okay, so they were showing all these punishments that they do in schools right now in the United States, these rooms that they put kids in, isolate them, stick them in bags, and holding them down. Shock therapy they did on this boy that had autism. This was on ABC, like it was Nightline, I think, I don't know. And then one boy who died, a boy that was in a school, he was playing basketball, they told him stop playing, and then they held him down, they suffocated him, and he had a heart attack and died. This is from what we're doing in schools right now. And I can send you guys that link to that video. It really brought me in tears when I was watching it earlier today. But that kind of stuff, that doesn't work. So I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do that. First day I was a teacher, I knew I didn't want to do that because I saw that at home, that didn't work with me, and I didn't like that. So I told my kids, the first day of school, my first class, fourth grade class, they're so cute. They're all like, yeah, Mr. Nakamura. I was their hero. I was like, I'm never going to raise my voice at you ever the whole year. It's the worst thing I ever said to them because I held myself accountable to that. Did I raise my voice? No. Did I cry? Yes. A lot of times, yeah, it was hard. But I knew that wouldn't work. So I knew, okay, I don't want to punish, so maybe I'll just focus more on like rewarding, right? Positive reinforcement, just be real positive with the kids all the time. Really, rewards and punishments are kind of the same thing. It's really the same thing. I'm trying to bribe or threaten you into behaving ways that I'm really telling you are undesirable. It's really undesirable to do work in school. Because I'm going to show you how undesirable